On Valentine's essentials. 1-800-Flowers has a wide selection of beautiful rose bouquets and arrangements, and the best part is they start at just $29.99. These breathtaking roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak. They're shipped overnight to ensure freshness and your loved one's amazement. Simply pick your delivery date and let 1-800-Flowers handle the rest. 1-800-Flowers has exclusive offers for First Take listeners. Today's offer is 24 multicolored roses for only $29.99. Or even better, upgrade to 24 red roses for just $10 more. But they are only available when supplies last. When it comes to Valentine's season, don't settle for anything less than the Rose Authority. 1-800-Flowers.com. To get amazing Valentine's deals like 24 multicolored roses for only $29.99 or upgrade to 24 red roses for only $10 more, go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click the radio icon, and enter code FIRSTTAKE. That's 1-800-Flowers.com. Click the radio icon and enter code FIRSTTAKE. Why wait to wow? Order right now.
What's up, First Take fam? Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Catch First Take weekdays 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN. Can you believe that game last night? So much to get into. Donovan McNabb is here with us, and right now we get into the Patriots win. Did they solidify Tom Brady as the greatest quarterback of all time? Plus, who is most responsible for the Falcons' complete meltdown? And the Patriots, will they be the favorite to win next year's Super Bowl? Let's get it started. Don't call it a comeback. They've been here for years. Hello, everybody. You know what it is. Welcome into First Take on this Monday morning. Stephen A., Donovan, Max, I'm Molly. How we feeling, everybody?
What's up? I'm wonderful.
Me too.
Let's go.
Let's get into it. Mission accomplished in the drive for 5. Brady leads the Patriots back from a Super Bowl record 25-point deficit in a 34-28 OT win against the Falcons. I still can't believe it happened. Stephen A., did the Pats win this or did the Falcons lose it?
I'm going to go with the Pats won. And I can come up with a bevy of reasons as to why Atlanta lost, which I'm quite sure my two colleagues here will not fail to do. I'm going to go with the fact that the Pats won, not just because I picked them, but because of how I picked them to win this game. Tom Brady was on another level. There is no denying it. It is what it is. But this defense, keep in mind, the fumble by LeGarrette Blount that set up one of Atlanta's touchdowns. The pick six by Tom Brady that gave them the other touchdown. Essentially, this high-powered Atlanta Falcons offense that scored 540 points this year, that was number one in the league with the number one passing attack, with the league MVP, with the running game personified, with the best wide receiver in football in Julio Jones, were held to 14 points, essentially, by this New England defense. So I look at it from that perspective. I look at their defense. I look at the second half adjustments Bill Belichick made. I look at the greatness of Tom Brady. I look at James White before it was Chris Hogan looking like Julio Jones in the AFC Championship game. 2 weeks later, we got James White here. I give him love and credit. Tom Brady acknowledges that he should have been the MVP. Like he said, Malcolm Butler should have been the MVP a couple of years ago. He'll probably give them the car. He'll take home the trophy. It is what it is. But what it comes down to is this. The Atlanta Falcons had a 28-3 lead, and the New England Patriots came back and took it. 31 unanswered points in the second half, 93 plays to about 46 plays, more than 200 yards in offense, more so than Atlanta. Miraculously, they had the same amount of yards rushing at 104, which makes no sense to me. But in the end, New England won this game.
Atlanta lost the game. Now, anytime you have a situation like this, New England's going to have to make a lot of good plays, and Atlanta's going to have to bungle some stuff. So I'm not even getting into the fact that on kickoffs, Atlanta couldn't get it past their own 12, right? Because you say, well, New England's defense. Or that Julian Edelman, with the game still on the lines, prancing to midfield on a punt return, right? Like, okay, you could say that's better special teams and that has to do with coaching and everything else and bungling from the Atlanta Falcons, but that's what happens when one team makes a great comeback. It's usually equal measures-ish of one team playing well and the other not playing well. This is what it comes down to. And this is why it's Atlanta losing. You have the ball in field goal range. All you have to do is call 2 running plays. If you wind up netting -3 yards, let's say, on those 2 running plays, which is unlikely. Falcons run the ball well. They probably, who knows, maybe they pick up a first down, but certainly they're more likely to advance the ball than to go backwards. If you do nothing at all, net gain of 0 on those 2 running plays, you are very likely to hit a field goal making it a 2-score game and putting the game out of reach for the Patriots.
You're talking immediately after the catch from Julio Jones, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That is a monumental blunder that it doesn't hand the game because, of course, now Tom Brady and company have to make all the plays, and Atlanta still has to bungle stuff on defense. But if you simply go like this to the running back, here, hold this, run that way, twice, you are overwhelmingly likely to win that game. It puts New England to bed. They opted not to do it. It resulted in a sack and a holding penalty. It wound up with 3rd and 33 at some point. I mean, that's one team saying, oh, this Super Bowl that we have wrapped up, here, take it back. Don't want it. We're giving it to you. That's the Falcons losing the game.
Atlanta definitely lost this game. It was bad coaching, no adjustments at halftime. In the first half, you talked about it, it was 14 points. It was 21 points. The going in at halftime, when you have a lead like you have to make adjustments, knowing that your offense hasn't been out there more than 20 plays in the first half. And if they get going, gain some momentum, this lead will begin to increase. But defensively, you're a defensive-minded head coach. And you know if your players are out there more than 20, 30, 40 plays in a half, they're going to get tired. You know that you have lack of depth at the defensive line standpoint. You know that you have a young secondary, young guys in their first or second year in the secondary and linebacking core, and you don't have a rotation. Sit them in zone coverage or possibly blitz them. Do not play man the whole game, because when you play man, that means at some point there's going to be an explosive play. Tom Brady has been in this league long enough where he understands we're that far away. Going in at halftime, there were adjustments made on the defensive end by Belichick and Patricia. But on the offensive end, they were just missing by that much. Drop balls, penalties, lack of blocking up front, little mistakes. That means Tom was hit too much. So who lost this game? Dan Quinn and Atlanta Falcons lost this game because they led the game all the way to the end until they gave it up. So for Matt Ryan, I feel bad for Matt Ryan because he did everything I said he needed to do in order to win this game. Eliminate the mistakes. Don't turn the football over.
Taking a sack what he did?
Well, what is he supposed to do? He can't throw the ball away because he can't get away from the guy. And so
that was not his blind side. He should have seen him cut.
Well, it's right in front of his face. But the two guys that played the best game out of all leading into that point were their center Mac, who was hurt going into that game, and their quarterback. And they both made the mistake. Then you lead to Devontae Freeman missing the block with Hightower, which led to a sack fumble. That right there turns it again back to New England. And going 3rd and 33 when you're out of field goal range puts you in a bad situation. So Dan Quinn and the Atlanta Falcons lost this game.
Well, first of all, both of you are wrong, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all,
please do.
That's right. Thank you so much. We've talked about it. We're going to debate at the parties.
Yeah, let's go.
We can debate right here. Here's the deal. Devontae Freeman missed that block on Hightower. No doubt he's accountable for that, and I get that. And when you talk about the nuances of the game in terms of what the coach could or could not have done, Kyle Shanahan, who we'll get into later, what he could and could not have done. Right. I get all of that. Here's why I got a problem with both of y'all, with what you're saying right now. If you recall, we're in Houston last week. You were sitting there chilling and partying and chilling, hanging out all the time. I had him to deal with, okay? Now I got both of y'all. I specifically said to you, the only way I can see Atlanta winning this game is if you explode out the gate, you put a hat on Tom Brady, and then ultimately that's your best shot. Because at any point in time, if the game gets tight, it's a different game. And this is what I mean by that, where I think y'all are letting Atlanta off the hook. Don't give me fatigue, number of plays.
Never brought up fatigue.
We talk about number of plays.
Go ahead.
What I'm saying to y'all is this. Is that dude who's not just a 4-time champion at the time, but is 39 years old playing in his 7th Super Bowl. And we go up against a bunch of young Lions, and that defensive line for Atlanta was very, very impressive for most of the game. But a bunch of young Lions with that secondary, and you've got guys that are just too young. They've never been here before, and they're in their early 20s. I said, it's going to get tight at some point in time. Those bright lights are going to get
I'm going to disprove this argument
brighter.
Right now.
Go ahead,
I'm going to shut this argument down right now with your own logic, okay?
Please.
Yes. Until last night, what was the worst call in the history of the Super Bowl?
Seattle.
Pete Carroll.
Seattle, right? I mean,
let's stop talking about that. That wasn't a bad call.
Okay, but I'm talking about his opinion now.
It was horrible.
His opinion.
Go ahead.
The point is, Seattle handed them that game, according to you, right? All you got to do is give the ball to Marshawn Lynch.
Right.
Actually, Donovan has brought up good points. I agree with you. I don't think that was the right call, but that's actually defensible in some way. You can actually construct an argument why, given the down, etc., you might call a passing play right there. That was different than yesterday. Last night, takes the cake. It replaces that as the worst call in Super Bowl history because you're in field goal range. You kick a field goal. That's an 11-point game. Game over. There's nothing the Patriots can do. There's no 4-point conversion.
But you're assuming I feel that way, and I don't. And here's why.
You hand the ball to the running back twice?
Allow me to explain. I do comprehend your point.
Well, let's see if you do.
With it. My point to you is this. On many, many occasions, all the football players that I have spoken to literally say.
None of them play quarterback.
No. Literally say, you really, really get iffy about putting the hands in the game of a field goal kicker unless you absolutely have to.
Well, the field goal kicker that they have is
I'm not talking about his reliability, because I know he hit 24 of 25 from 35 to 45 yards out. I know he's been relatively consistent. What I'm saying is, because of the magnitude of moments and the kind of things that can go wrong with a field goal, sometimes you are of the mindset, I'm just going to play my game. I'm not justifying it. I'm simply saying that's the kind of thinking. In my years of covering sports, I've always been told, you don't go there unless you have to go there. You play your game until you have no choice.
But at that point, when you're in field goal range, you hit it, it's over. It's not like you need it to tie to get to overtime or anything.
The game's over.
You're going to overtime, even if the Patriots do everything right, which they did, and you do everything wrong, which is what happens.
But the way Tom Brady was rolling, you don't feel that.
Well, see,
therefore, you kick the field goal.
And that's why I go to the Atlanta sense, because they know the momentum was shifted over to the New England Patriots.
That's right.
So in order for you to combat that, you have to be able to be balanced on offense. They came out, ran the half row, and Devontae
minus 1 yard.
Well, the whole thing about it is, I think the injury to Tevin Coleman is something that we need to focus on a little bit more, because he's their pounder. He's the grinder. Devontae Freeman is a great running back. He can run through tackles, but you need that big running back. So when I look at the sense of at the end, and y'all keep bringing up that whole thing with New England and Seattle, you know that New England ran that same type of play for the two-point conversion that was converted. That's the same play that New England ran for Danny Amendola getting in the end zone. So stop bringing it up. But let's talk about it.
Clemson won to win the national title.
That's what I'm saying. So don't bring it up. Don't bring that mess up. The Atlanta lost the game because they didn't run the ball. They kicked a field goal. Don't you bring that up no more. He got 2-point conversion for Danny Amendola.
Stop letting him off the hook.
Say that.
We've been arguing about this for 2 years. He makes me sick with that point. He just stopped it.
Danny Amendola touchdown, 2-point conversion.
There's another huge debate we often have that I hope we are finally going to settle today. Can we please get into this?
We're just warming up.
Yes. The New England Patriots engineered the greatest comeback, as you know, in Super Bowl history, and it's also the largest comeback of Tom Brady's career. Brady is the first starting quarterback and just the second player ever, that would be Charles Haley, to win 5 Super Bowls. Here are Brady's teammates on his performance.
He's our leader. He's so competitive. We rally behind him. He's the best. Tom Brady.
He's not only the greatest right now, I think he'll be the greatest to go down.
He's the greatest of all time.
We have one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game.
The guy's the greatest of all time, man.
He's the Michael Jordan of football.
He's the GOAT.
Yeah, Brady's the best ever, hands down. Woo!
Can we finally put this to rest, Max Kellerman? Does this win make Brady the greatest of all time?
No, he already was the greatest of all time, as I've been sitting here and telling everybody. Tom Brady is, look, there are arguments in sports, Montana or Marino. Everyone knew Marino was better, but Montana had the intangibles. In other words, he's on a better team and he's a clutch player. Okay, get it. You look at Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Oh, Brady gave you the feeling he was better because he's on a better team and he's clutch, and Peyton wasn't, but Peyton had better numbers. Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez. A-Rod had the numbers, but Jeter had the World Series, was on a better team, also gave you the impression he's clutch. The thing about Tom Brady in recent years is now he is Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, and A-Rod, but with, you know, in terms of all those numbers, but he's clutch and wins, like Jeter and Tom Brady and Joe Montana. He has the numbers to back it up, and he has the championship. He was already the greatest of all time when this happened. What this does is put distance between him and everybody else, increases the distance, and adds
including Aaron Rodgers' distance.
Well, yes,
well,
he's the Michael Jordan of football.
No, he's not the Michael Jordan of football, because Jordan, that's a different level. But no, he's not better than Aaron Rodgers, but he has the resume that you can't dispute. He's on a greater team with a much better coach and many more career accomplishments. Is he actually better if you could choose either quarterback? No, but we'll save that for later in the show. The point is, he had already established his legacy as the greatest quarterback ever. This adds to it because this is probably the most incredible part of his legend, kind of like LeBron James last year in the finals, bringing them back from down 3-1. Already the greatest of all time. Stephen A., you had Joe Montana ahead of him.
I was getting ready to go there. I've always had Joe Montana ahead of him.
But
I always have. Not today.
There you go.
Oh,
there you go.
Oh, he
Not
proved
today.
you.
Not today. Listen, despite the greatness of Joe Montana throughout the years, what resonated with me was that drive in '88 against Cincinnati when he hooked up and finished the deal with that 10-yard pass to John Taylor after driving them about 90 yards. And you hear the stories about him seeing comedian John Candy in the stands and coming in the huddle and being so cool, completely unfazed and not worried and driving them downfield and doing that stuff. Although I've seen Tom Brady do it before, because after all, yesterday was the 51st time he's had a comeback victory in his career, I've never seen anything like this. What I saw last night may be the greatest performance I've ever seen in the championship game, in the Super Bowl. I'll go to NFL because I got to think a little bit harder about some NFL encounters and things, NBA encounters rather than things that I've seen. But this is the greatest on a football field that I've ever seen. I thought that Tom Brady was absolutely sensational on so many ways. The passes that he was making when it counted, the accuracy, the poise, everything that you want from your leader. He delivered the goods. Now, he was already considered one of the great ones. After what I saw yesterday, that was a Montana moment that, to me, I had never gotten from Brady. I saw Brady lose an AFC Championship game to Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts. I saw him lose an AFC Championship game against Denver. I saw him not close the deal against the Giants. One time or another, whether it's because of a sack or anything like that, or Eli Manning coming to the rescue with David Tyree or the Mario Manningham hookup. I saw all of these things. I was waiting for what I believed was a Joe Montana moment from Tom Brady to eclipse him over Joe Montana. This was it. I concede. I have nothing to say. It's the greatest performance I've ever seen on a football field.
I've said it for the last 2 weeks that he's the greatest quarterback of all time. I've said this. He didn't have to win the game or even if he lost the game. And I said this because over the history of his career, he has done nothing but win football games. And as a quarterback in the NFL, you're not measured by the numbers that you put up, because a lot of numbers that some quarterbacks have could be getting blown out by 30, 40 points, and you're still racking up numbers. But it's the consistency with winning. Making it to the AFC Championship 11 times and going to the Super Bowl 7 out of those 11 times. Winning 5 Super Bowl championships. I don't care if you average 195 passing yards a game. You're still showing that you're a winning quarterback. And for Tom Brady, besides Randy Moss, can you name a Hall of Fame wide receiver or tight end that he's played with? So when you compare him to the Joe Montanas, when you compare him to the Peyton Mannings, when you compare him to guys who have been up at the upper echelon, who have played with Hall of Fame wide receivers, running backs, or tight ends, Tom Brady will go.
Let's give Gronk credit, too.
Well, Gronk, to me, Gronk might not play more than 3 or 4 more years because of his injuries. That's a serious injury. So now we're questioning if Gronk really is a Hall of Famer. He may get in, but it won't be the first or second ballot type of Hall of Fame. For Tom Brady, it says a lot because, to me, he is the Michael Jordan of football. Now, we talk about Aaron Rodgers and his ability or what he can do, but when you have a guy who I would say probably less athletic than a lot of quarterbacks that have played, but still have the mentality of knowing what to do with the right situation and elevating the players around him. Julian Edelman was a quarterback in college. From Chris Hogan was a lacrosse player at Monmouth. You go all the way to Mitchell. Nobody even talk about wide receiver Mitchell. Take Gronk out of it. Martellus Bennett was a backup tight end until Gronk got hurt. Now all of a sudden it became.
But Bennett was a good player.
But see, this is what I'm saying. But it became.
How about he did it without Gronk?
Well, see, and that's the whole thing. So when you talk about Tom Brady and the consistency that he's had throughout his career, and I compare him to Michael Jordan, and he's not only the greatest quarterback that have played in the NFL, he may be arguably the greatest player. Because quarterbacks get measured a little bit differently. And I say that because last night showed me something different where it became a Michael Jordan moment in Utah. Hitting that game winner, holding it up. Holding it up, and I'm a Bulls fan, holding his hand up to follow through to let everybody know where I stand as far as history is concerned. That last night showed where Tom Brady was, with they leading them down for the championship for the win. That right there just let everybody know how great Tom Brady is and it was a mic drop moment where he can retire at this point, and we would love him for the rest of his life.
What you guys are both talking about is the narrative-changing nature of the moment. For you, it's having that Montana moment where you drive to win the whole thing. For you, it's letting everyone know that you're the greatest of all time, like a Michael Jordan moment, Joe Montana moment. It's interesting to me because I agree it was narrative-changing, which although he's already the greatest ever, it elevates him in the sense that LeBron, you think about what he just did with Cleveland. Had they lost that series, people would have looked and said, you won 2. One of them was because Ray Allen hit a 3. Really, like, you take that away, you're one shot away from winning 1 championship. Tough to talk about him with Jordan or over Kobe or guys like that. Here with Tom Brady, imagine if they lose this game, even with a great comeback and they fall just short. He had to win the game. He had to make all the plays. If you fall just short, people look and go, the last 4 Super Bowls you were in. You lost 2 to the Giants. You won 1 against Seattle because of the worst play call in history, according to many, including Stephen A. Smith. And then you just lost to Atlanta. All of a sudden, the entire narrative about him being the greatest changes, and there's plenty of competition. But because he actually won the game, there's no argument today.
Well, here's how I look at it.
Yeah.
I'll close it out this way. You bring up LeBron James. As far as I'm concerned, Warriors are 2-time champions if Draymond Green doesn't get suspended. It's just that simple to me. You know, that's not a moment that you can look at with Tom Brady. When we look at Jordan, that moment against Utah, whatever, but he was already a 5-time champion, and now he had won the 6 and closed the deal, and plus the Bulls were favored in that game. Tom Brady was down 28-3. It is the greatest comeback in the history of the Super Bowl. Exercised against a team that everybody and their mother looked at and said, they're more talented.
On offense.
They're big. I'm talking about they're bigger, they're stronger, they were vicious, they were getting at them. Just from an athletic perspective, they were just those dogs. They had that in them. Now, it's one thing to look at it from its standpoint and say, all right, the Patriots should beat them going into the game. But once you watch the first 2.5 quarters,
you thought the game was over.
And you saw it, it was like, my God, they're just better. And then here comes Brady.
Yeah, and the defense and special teams.
But you gotta remember,
and a lot of mistakes by the Falcons.
And against the Giants, he was winning.
That's right.
Up until 2 minutes.
That's right.
All right, that's got to be the last word because we got a lot more to get into. Meanwhile, Matt Ryan, who was named the NFL MVP on Saturday, became the 8th straight NFL MVP to lose in a Super Bowl. In the final 16 minutes of regulation, Ryan completed 4 of 8 passes with 2 off-target throws, no touchdowns, and 3 sacks, including 1 that resulted in a lost fumble while up 16 in the 4th. Through 3 quarters, he had a perfect passer rating, 158.3. In the 4th, it dropped to 98, still solid. Here's Matt putting on a brave face after the most devastating loss of his career.
That was a tough one. I wish I could have done a better job trying to get rid of that ball. That was a big drive for us to kind of turn the field and get the ball down in field goal range, and to not come away with points on that drive was very disappointing.
All right, gentlemen. I'm going to start with you, Max. Did this performance prove Ryan is not the league MVP?
Yes, it did. And I hate to say it because I understand the logic of saying, look, you got to give a regular season MVP award because a third of the teams about in the NFL, a little more, make the playoffs. But what about the 2/3, little less, that don't? You know, you're going to remember recency bias. You're going to remember the last thing you saw, and then the guys who don't make the playoffs or don't progress as far in the playoffs get shafted and all that stuff. I get that. But we can't pretend that the highest leverage games don't count. They count for more, much more, than a regular season game. And what we have right now is an MVP in the regular season and an MVP for the Super Bowl, and we pretend that the entirety of the playoffs don't happen, including the Super Bowl.
You can't factor in the playoffs.
Yeah, you can't factor in the playoffs. Everything's regular season.
No. Right. And that's the problem, because the reality is, was he regular season MVP? Yeah. He has a strong case. But why are we even asking the question, does this prove he wasn't the real MVP? We're asking the question because we implicitly acknowledge that there's higher leverage games, and we'll see what's what at the end of those games. And what you saw at the end of that game is that Matt Ryan wasn't the MVP. Sorry to Matt Ryan, who had a fantastic year. But you can't come up that small in the biggest moments of the biggest games and say you're the MVP.
Let me go ahead and get him. First of all, How can you say the man came up small? You just heard the numbers when he in his first half and the second half.
Second half, I said.
98%. I mean, in the fourth quarter, that wins ball games. If you can't win when your quarterback has a QB rating of 98, that says to me
you can't take a sack in that situation.
Oh, so you're gonna just go by the sack and say he's not an MVP? If that's the case, then Peyton Manning should.
Was he a runaway MVP? Was he a runaway MVP?
No, it don't matter if you run away if you won by one vote. He's still an MVP.
Right. So if it's that close,
he beat Aaron Rodgers. You're Michael Jordan of the NBA.
And by the way, had Aaron Rodgers been the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons, they win that.
Well, this isn't Madden football where you start taking one quarterback off one team and put him on another. Can you please just give him your whole slogan? What is he right now?
You're wrong.
But are you going to give him the wrong? You're not going to give him the disrespectful?
No. He's not being disrespectful. He's just wrong. I understand in the immediate aftermath of the Super Bowl, the fact that Matt Ryan, who's been in this league for so long, took that sack. You got to know better than that. Again, that doesn't mean he's not the MVP. I'm just saying this ain't the day to gloat about Matt Ryan because Matt Ryan hurt himself in that regard, but it doesn't negate the fact that he is the MVP. The MVP is based on what you've done throughout the regular season. He was nothing short of phenomenal, not to mention the fact that in the postseason he was phenomenal as well.
Absolutely.
Seattle and Green Bay, and he deserves credit for that. That mistake that he made in terms of taking that sack after the -1 yard run by Devontae Freeman, which followed Julio Jones' spectacular catch for 27 yards down the right sideline. Of course, that's going to count against Matt Ryan, not to mention the fact that when you have a 28-3 lead, people are looking at you and saying, could you not stop the bleeding? So, again, what I'm saying to you is that he's not. You're wrong. He is the MVP, and we shouldn't look at him any differently. What we should look at him as is this. Even in the throes of Matt Ryan going for league MVP honors, at no time did we ever compare him to
Molly. Why?
Hold on.
Matt Ryan played a phenomenal game.
Listen. At no time did we ever compare him to Tom Brady.
No need to.
I'm saying we learned why yesterday. As you would say,
we suspected before the game.
As y'all both would say, there are levels to this.
Yes.
Matt Ryan is great, but Tom Brady is on another level.
Why are you asking the question in the first place? You're asking the question. Implicit in the question is, should we wait till the end of the Super Bowl before we give out the MVP award? That's really what the question asks.
We should not.
Then why would we even ask if this proves he wasn't the MVP? The reason it does prove that is because the questions of people like Stephen A. and others was, in the moment of truth, do you trust Matt Ryan? And many people,
I saw that yesterday.
Many people said no, and they, in the moment of truth, were proven right when he took the sack.
So, people say no because of the end result. When he had the football in his hands, he did what he needed to do, throwing it to the right person, did not turn the football over. So we're going to nitpick on a certain play during the game and blame Matt Ryan and say he's not the MVP. That is so disrespectful because if you want to go on the opposite side of the ball, then that means that Tom Brady shouldn't have threw that interception that went for a touchdown. They wouldn't have been in that situation.
Exactly.
So it's disrespectful in a sense for you when you're talking about Matt Ryan and everything that he's accomplished during the regular season. And then he and Tom Brady both going into this championship game throwing for almost 800 yards in the playoffs. That says a lot about what he was able to accomplish, not only just during the regular season, but also when it counted in the last 8 games of the season. Tom Brady and also Matt Ryan are very similar in a sense because both knew how to protect the football. They did what they needed to do to help their team win. They were the best player on the football team, even though people may say Julio Jones, but I still say Matt Ryan was the best football player on the Atlanta Falcons, and he was the best football player last night.
Julio Jones is the best. And by the way,
see, that's the problem that I have. I have a problem with that because we always want to bring somebody else around the quarterback and say he's the best player. But in order for that receiver to get the ball, the quarterback has to get him the football.
Yeah, but the reason his completion percentage was high as it was because Julio Jones, even with
what about 13? He threw 13. He threw touchdowns to 13 other people.
I'm not saying Matt.
Wait.
I'm not saying Matt Ryan's not. I'm not saying Matt Ryan's not excellent. But if we acknowledge that the MVP race was close, in other words, he was barely the MVP over some other candidates, then we also have to acknowledge that the outcome of the highest leverage game will affect how we feel about it.
It doesn't matter if it's by 1 vote or half a vote, he's the MVP.
And if he deserves to have the MVP.
Why are we asking the question?
We're asking the question because it always comes down to who's better than who. Because now we want to sit in the sense with Matt Ryan, who's not the Tom Brady and that has a name, but in a game that mattered the most, when we want to sit there and nitpick different things, we want to now pull something out about Matt Ryan. If he would have won that game, he would have been probably the best quarterback in the Super Bowl since Phil Simms when it comes to efficiency and consistency in the passing game. Matt Ryan has put on a clinic during the game where only went less than 45 plays in a game. That right there should tell you
We're asking the question because in the moment of truth we want to know.
Yes.
Randy Moss will likely be a first ballot Hall of Famer next year when he's eligible. I sincerely doubt that at any point we're going to sit up there and say Randy Moss is the best player on the New England Patriots instead of Tom Brady. We're not going to say that.
No.
Because we're going to recognize that despite the greatness of a Randy Moss, somebody had to get him the damn ball. I'm not going to disrespect Matt Ryan as much as I think that Julio Jones has established himself as the best. As much as I believe that catch by Julio Jones was
outstanding.
Oh,
spectacular.
That was
the bottom line is
I
saw a lot of accurate passes that Matt Ryan was throwing. The New England Patriots were successful. Time of possession proves it. They kept them off the field. They sat up there and disrupted their rhythm. They affected them in ways that normally teams couldn't affect. You got to remember, coming into yesterday's Super Bowl, the previous 6 games, the Atlanta Falcons had played with a double-digit lead in the second half. So you got your prevent defense. You're playing with a cushion. You're able to take chances. It affected a lot of things. The same thing happened yesterday, except that Tom Brady got going. All of a sudden, it pressurized them. They weren't able to produce. And what I think we've learned is that Matt Ryan, we haven't learned anything about the greatness of Matt Ryan except for one thing, which we truly already knew. There are levels to this, and as great as Matt Ryan is, he ain't. Matt Ryan
in the NFC Championship game kept adding to the lead. It was ruthless, even in the second half. Even as Aaron Rodgers made plays that no one else could make, Matt Ryan
Green Bay's defense, not New England's.
Exactly. Yes, when faced with a good defense in the biggest moment, they were going 3 and out.
They were good.
They were going 3 and out. If not for Julio Jones, it would have been worse.
This is good.
Yeah.
What do you do against them?
No, well, actually, Earl Thomas made all the difference with Seattle.
Earl Thomas, they were still a good defense.
Not the secondary was severely compromised. The point you've made on this show.
Not that severely.
Pretty severe.
To the point where you scoring 40.
Guys.
Yeah.
We got to leave it there.
Okay.
So Jerry Jones, LaDainian Tomlinson, Kurt Warner, Terrell Davis, Jason Taylor, Morton Anderson, and Kenny Easley will all be enshrined. Congratulations to all of them in Canton on August 5th. Much, much deserved. But what everyone seems to be focused on isn't who got in, but who got left off. Terrell Owens was snubbed from the Pro Football Hall of Fame for the 2nd year. Tio was all over Twitter this weekend. Here's his reaction Saturday saying, "Unfortunately, I did not make it again this year. Thanks to all my fans and supporters. Hashtag flawed process." Stephen A., should Tio be in the Hall of Fame?
Not only should he be in the Hall of Fame, it's an embarrassment. It's a disgrace that he wasn't in the Hall of Fame. And as far as I'm concerned, the 48 voters that had a say in it should be ashamed of themselves. The media should be ashamed of themselves. As far as I'm concerned, when people go out there and they talk about how the media is dead or whatever, it's moments like this that give credence. Now, let's be clear. Max Kellerman, exceptional boxing analyst. Donovan McNabb, probably future Hall of Fame quarterback. Stephen A. Smith, mild-mannered reporter, your friendly neighborhood reporter. I've been a reporter for 24 years. And this is one of the problems that I have, which is why I'm glad and honored and proud to have the seat that I have. I swear to you, on everything that I am, I have never, ever diminished the accomplishments of any sports figure on any level because I did not like them. Absolutely not. It's inexcusable. Regardless of how people may feel about Terrell Owens, they have no right to ignore the 153 touchdowns, to ignore the 15,934 receiving yards, which, by the way, were 3rd and 2nd all-time, respectively. We are talking about a wide receiver that it ranks in the top 6 statistical categories in NFL history for a receiver, and you justify not putting him in the Hall of Fame. Why? Because you don't like this man? Oh, we were told that this guy was a cancer in the locker room, etc., etc. You can speak to that. You're a quarterback. You played with him. I respect that. But at the end of the day, as a media member, we get stuff from dudes all the time. We're very judicious, guys, in what we reveal. Some things we report, some things we don't. At the end, what is paramount is that somebody's accomplishments in a meritocracy that is supposed to be this country in this sports world. You're supposed to shove all your personal feelings aside and recognize what somebody has done. And the fact that that has been ignored because he is not liked, as far as I'm concerned, the media should turn in their card. They cannot be trusted. I don't think they should even be allowed to vote on the Hall of Fame anymore after this. This is a disgrace.
In fact, if you're a member of the media who votes on this, the danger should not be in keeping him out. The danger should be that in fighting against your own bias against him, if you don't like him, you overrate him. That should be the danger. I mean, this happens to me also covering boxing, for example, and other sports, is if I've met someone and we don't get along or whatever the case may be, my danger is always let me not overrate them because I'm fighting against my own bias, right? It's never like I'm going to undercut them because I don't like them. That's disgraceful. I 100% agree. This is not that hard, ladies and gentlemen. This ain't that hard. T.O.'s obviously a Hall of Famer. There are a couple of things. One, you know a Hall of Famer when you're looking at him. When you watch T.O. play, you know, that's a Hall of Famer. He was among the 3 best wideouts in the league for a generation. That's a Hall of Famer. 2, do the numbers support what your eyeballs see? Yes, they do. The numbers support it. Longevity, the whole thing. And in terms of, he's a locker room cancer, and I'm sure you can speak to this in a moment, he could be the biggest locker room cancer of all time. His accomplishments, eyeball-tested numbers, would still put him in the Hall of Fame, but I would remind everybody, the man played in 1 Super Bowl on 1 leg, was criticized throughout the media all that week for being selfish, for wanting to play in the Super Bowl, making it about him, when really he's trying to get out there and help his team. He was he was the best player on the field. Either team that day.
We just had this conversation about the best player on the field. We're not going to go there. Like, I'm not here to talk the personal aspect of things because obviously everything that we have been through, myself and him, it's been publicized. It's been a big story. Who knows if there'll be a 30 for 30 over it. But the whole thing about it is you have to look at what he's done on the field. And I've always got on Max about get off of Google and stop looking at the numbers. When the man was on the field, did he dominate whoever was in front of him? And that was yes. And that was for years. That was when he was in San Francisco, Philadelphia, when he was in Dallas, when he was in Cincinnati, or even when he was in Buffalo. The thing about Terrell Owens, he makes everyone else better. Now, our wide receiving core before he got there, no need to even mention it. But when he got there, everybody else's game elevated. And we talk about some of the great players that have played this game when we're talking Tom Brady, when we're talking Michael Jordan. Has he made guys around him better? And I can say, yes, Terrell Owens has. But as far as the first ballot is concerned, yeah, I understand that he was a locker room cancer, and that's something for voters can use in their voting. But when you sit a man out with the numbers that he had, ranked second all time in a lot of different categories, but one where he's ranked third in touchdowns, there is no reason why Terrell Owens should not be in the Hall of Fame. Not to take anything away from the class that went in. Congratulations to those guys that went in. But there is no reason why Terrell Owens wasn't the first name mentioned to be inducted into the Hall of Fame going into this season.
Donovan knows I covered the Philadelphia Eagles, writing for the Philadelphia Inquirer for years, especially when he and T.O. was in the same locker room. And say what you will about all of the effects that he had, that's for another day. There ain't no getting around this. The fact that reporters can sit up there, you are not in that locker room, which basically means you're going through word of mouth. There are people who love T.O., and there are people who thought he was a cancer.
Right.
In the end, for you to sit up there and ignore those numbers, if ever there was a case for the media to be stripped of their right to vote, this is it.
Since when is it a character contest? And if we're going to go there, he's never in trouble with the law and anything of that matter. I understand the
Let's just
locker
say
room
we're all
issues.
in trouble who all are
There are tough calls.
It's a talent contest.
There are tough calls for the Hall of Fame. This is not one of them. This should be easy. T.O.'s a Hall of Famer.
Either.
No question. Donovan, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate you.
Hey, listeners, this week on the Low Post podcast, we have Chris Herring from 538 talking Carmelo Anthony and the Knicks and the teams we're worried about around the NBA.
Let's get back to the game, guys. Another show we saw last night. The Falcons led 28-3 until 2 minutes left in the third, but then allowed the Patriots to come all the way up and force OT and ultimately get the job done the Patriot way. So Max put out a poll on Twitter last night. You can follow him at Max Kellerman. He had over 12,000 votes asking who is most to blame, Matt Ryan, Dan Quinn, or Kyle Shanahan. But Stephen A., I want to get your thoughts first. Who do you think deserves the most blame for for this epic collapse?
You know what? I'm going to go with the soon-to-be new head coach for the San Francisco 49ers. It's going to be Kyle Shanahan. Now, obviously, Quinn gets some of the blame as well. The buck stops with the head coach, and the head coach has a lot to do with it. We understand that we respect it and appreciate that. But Kyle Shanahan is the guy calling the plays offensively. He's the one that's been paraded all over the airwaves in terms of his personal relationship with Matt Ryan and how they've cultivated with one another. We get all of that. I'm looking at a running attack that was running roughshod all over New England that suddenly disappeared. I'm looking at the fact that Julio Jones wasn't targeted nearly as much as he should have been. I'm looking at that. I'm also looking at the fact that after that catch by Julio Jones for 27 yards, where he tap danced on the sidelines before falling out of bounds, again, the very next play, a running play. Then after that, it ain't just that Matt Ryan was passing. That was like a 7-step drop, for crying out loud. He lost 12 yards on that sack. Why would you call that? And if you're going to call a passing play there, it certainly shouldn't be something that deep. And so when you look at it from that perspective, I think that to some degree it was a deer caught in headlights by the coaches. I think that Bill Belichick knew what he was going up against. We can look at Quinn as well, because Quinn is on the defensive side of the ball, and he's responsible for both sides. So you certainly could give him more culpability. But the reason why I'm looking at Kyle Shanahan is because what got you here was your offense. Number 1 ranked overall. Number 3 passing attack. Number 5 rushing attack. You certainly could have, been a bit more. I don't want to say more aggressive, because sometimes you got to know when to be aggressive and you got to know when to step back. You got to feel this moment. And I don't think they did that, and that's why I'm looking at him.
They're all good choices, by the way. But the answer, in fact, is Dan Quinn. And you mentioned why. Because the buck stops with the head coach. Because you can point to follies all over the field. Look, Tom Brady tried to give them the ball a couple times. In the red zone, he tried to give them the ball. They didn't seem to want it. You can point to the defense. You can point to all kinds of missed opportunities and different plays, etc. But sometimes there's a uniquely high leverage moment in a game that will decide the outcome of that game. And that was when they were in field goal position. They were in field goal range. And all you had to do was call 2 running plays, and you were overwhelmingly likely to win that game. And instead, they don't. Now, you can blame Kyle Shanahan. He's the offensive coordinator. Here's the problem. And this is why it's uniquely, in this case, also Dan Quinn's problem, Stephen A. Smith. He had just been on the coaching staff on a team that handed the Patriots the Super Bowl, according to what you call the worst play call in the history of the NFL, really, because if it's the worst in the Super Bowl, it's the worst in the history of the NFL. And he was the the defensive coordinator on that team. Mm-hmm. And he watched as Darrell Bevell made the wrong decision, and he was powerless to do anything about it because he's a coordinator on the other side of the ball. The buck doesn't stop with him then. And you would think that he had to be thinking to himself in that moment, when I am the head coach of a team, I am going to make sure, if I am ever in this position, that I don't get this wrong. Like, he just experienced it in a way that, like, you touch the stove and get burnt, but even beyond that, because he didn't have control over that situation, he had control over this situation and allowed the offensive coordinator on the team once again to make the wrong call, not once, but twice consecutively in the game, where now he's the head coach. I'm sorry, that was the moment that absolutely determined that game. It was in Dan Quinn's power to stop it, to make it turn out right for him. He decided not to. The buck stops with him.
The buck definitely stopped with him. Nobody could argue that point. I guess what I'm looking at, Max, is the fact that Kyle Shanahan is trying to become a head coach. Quinn already is one. And so when you're trying to become a head coach and your offense is what brought you there, the fact that you would make such decisions is what resonates with me. Because if I'm the San Francisco 49ers, I'm kind of looking at you and saying, damn.
Maybe he thought his offense could get it done. And I get high risk, high reward. And obviously doing it twice is crazy, but maybe they thought they had to get the 6.
Part of what you do offensively is not just about doing what you do, but it's also about sensing what you're up against. It's also about, I remember when you sit up there, when we watched Chip Kelly coaching the Philadelphia Eagles, and you had some dudes that was screaming like, damn, just get a first down. Take your time. Walk to the huddle. Let us catch a deep breath, for crying out loud. Why? And you had coaches literally on the sidelines going at it with one another. It wasn't just because of schemes or whatever the case may be. It was because we need a break. We understand what's going on here, and you're just going to throw us to the wolves. cut us some slack. I'm saying if you're Shanahan, as an offensive coordinator who's about to be a head coach, by the way, a head coach is about to get a 6-year deal, because we know if John Lynch got a 6-year deal and he's never been in a front office executive a day in his life, then we know good and damn well Kyle Shanahan's about to get a 6-year deal as well. So I'm looking at it from that perspective, and I'm saying, you know all of this. You see what Tom Brady is doing. You see the momentum shifting. More importantly, you know your players well enough to look into their eyes and know what time it is, even though you were up in the booth. You know this. So you got to take all of those things into consideration, because essentially right now, this is going to be in your hands. Why do I say that? Everybody's making noise about Atlanta's defense and what Atlanta's defense did the second half of the season. When they closed out the season with the last 4 games, let me remind the world, it was against the Los Angeles Rams. It was against the San Francisco 49ers, 2 jokes of franchises. And then after that, you had a subpar Carolina team and a no defense having New Orleans Saints team. And then in the postseason, you went against Seattle, which was a bit debilitated on the offensive side of the ball. And then you had Green Bay, whose secondary was decimated. So all of those things were nothing compared to what you were faced with yesterday. Knowing that, you got to feel all of that and go forward.
Second point about Dan Quinn. So, one, he should have learned from his Seattle experience. Yeah. Now the buck stops with him, and how he let that happen again when he had control over the situation is beyond me. The second thing is he got totally outcoached in the second half of the game. Belichick went and made adjustments, especially on Julio Jones. And suddenly, it's not just that one phase of the game. Look, if the offense wasn't clicking, fine. Yep. Blame Shanahan. They were getting destroyed on offense, on defense, and on special teams. That's all 3 phases of the game. Now, you could say, well, players have to make the plays, and that's true. But ultimately, the only one person who has some control over all 3 phases of the game is the head coach. So not only in the moment of truth did he blow it, and by the way, I'm not against Dan Quinn. I wish him the best. Wish he would have won. That would have been a fun show to do.
But that's when you saw Belichick's greatness in terms of him making the second half adjustments. But we got to give him credit. I know you guys are going to say it's the first half. Who cares? But that defense did look incredible getting after Brady in that first half.
But Molly, that's why it's on Dan Quinn, because coming in, they had all the advantages. They were more talented.
But I was so impressed that initial first half. I understand
the coaching adjustments at halftime really show you who's who.
Of course.
And he got totally outclassed.
Of course. No question. We'll leave it there. I still cannot believe that they won that game. Absolutely incredible. Welcome back into First Take. Thank you guys so much for hanging with us. Stephen A., Max Kellerman, Will Kane, I'm Molly Qerim. We had a great first hour. Stephen A., what you got on your mind for number 2?
Well, Goodell and Brady. That's what I got on my mind.
Oh, yeah, we haven't touched on
We heard those boos coming from Goodell. Lord knows, you know, Deflategate is still on a whole lot of people's minds, and we saw how Tom Brady handled that particular situation, how Mr. Kraft handled that particular situation, how Bill Belichick handled that particular situation. I can't wait to get into that conversation. Plus, my final take will be a little bit interesting in that regard.
Hey.
A lot of people tweeting at me about Tom Brady and the cliff. And it seems to me that people have a problem either comprehending things or don't understand what a cliff is. But we're going to get into that a little later.
So you're going to explain.
I cannot wait.
I can't wait either. I can't wait to talk about this.
I got my dictionary ready.
Perfect.
Looking up the definition of a cliff.
Perfect. And I have the thesaurus in case we need that too.
We don't know what a cliff is. So I got it. I'm ready.
We'll break it down for us. All right, let's get into it, gentlemen. So the Falcons blew the biggest lead in Super Bowl history, leading 28-3 with 2 minutes left in the third. They were outscored 31-0 the rest of the way. This pretty much can't get any worse, unless, of course, you're the Seahawks, who made arguably the worst call in Super Bowl history, not handing the ball off to beast mode, costing Seattle the chip 2 years ago. So these are the type of games, the players tell us, that you never get over. I think as fans you don't either. But which one stings more really is the question. Stephen A., who had the worst loss to the Pats? Would you say it's Seattle or the Falcons last night?
I'm going to say it's the Seattle Seahawks. I don't give a damn what happened yesterday. I don't care that
even with the comeback.
I don't care. I don't.
Molly, leave that one.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't care.
Flabbergasted.
I don't care. Yeah, you had a 25-point lead, but you looked like a deer in headlights when it counted most. I'm thinking about a situation when you're the Seattle Seahawks, all right? You got Beast Mode who showed up in that fourth quarter. You got that terrific acrobatic catch. I believe it was by Curse, if I remember correctly, back in, just a couple of plays earlier. You've got Beast Mode, Marshawn Lynch running from the 5-yard line to the half-yard line. You're a half-yard away from a Super Bowl title, and you blow it. You blow it. Last night, when I looked at the Atlanta Falcons, even though you were up 25 points, As New England gained that momentum, I saw the deer in headlights. I saw them get a little frightful. I saw the greatness of Tom Brady just ooze, just easing up on everybody. It got to a point where literally, even when New England was down 28-20, everybody was like, don't let Brady get this ball back. Don't let him get this ball back because it's going to get tired, all of this other stuff. And so suddenly now you're panicking because your defense, which got away with got disguised by subpar competition the previous 6 weeks, suddenly found yourself up against the man and said, oh, damn, what did we get ourselves into now? That was not the case with Seattle 2 years ago. 2 years ago, you are at the half-yard line. And I'll put it to you this way. We can use a boxing analogy because I know how much that touches you. Remember Julio Cesar Chavez. You remember Mildred Taylor. Richard Steele, right? 2 seconds left and counting them out for crying out loud. To be that close and then to blow it like that. That's entirely different than a quarter or a quarter and a half. Okay. That's what I look at.
I cannot believe how wrong you got this one. Mm-hmm. It is so clearly and by so much the Falcons. This has to hurt so much worse for so many different reasons. I don't know where to begin, but I'll start with this. Seattle already won a Super Bowl in this era with this coach and this quarterback. They're a perennial powerhouse. They're consistently making runs in the playoffs. In fact, in the NFC, they're the closest thing the NFC has in recent years to the Patriots in the AFC. Yeah. It's the closest thing the NFC has. Great coach, great quarterback, Legion of Boom. It's really largely the same team that had already won a Super Bowl. Secondly, Seattle was attempting a comeback, so they didn't complete the comeback. That is so much different. Look, we all acknowledge that last night, was the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. Well, in order for that to be true, you need the greatest collapse in Super Bowl history. The greatest collapse in Super Bowl history for not only a franchise that's never won, but for a city in Atlanta that has, across all major sports, a grand total of 1 championship by the Atlanta Braves. And by the way, even then, the Braves made a record consecutive appearances. What was it, 14 straight years in the playoffs? So it's not like they got it in it once or twice and they won one. They were in it every single year, usually considered the best team in baseball. Only 1 championship, and that's the only championship in the city. So how does it not hurt worse when you have the most epic collapse? And then it comes down to the play calling when you're in field goal range. How did he get it this wrong?
Will, can you break the tie, please?
I just want to let y'all speak.
I need you to break the tie. Yeah.
I feel like our relationship has taken a little turn for the negative over the last few weeks. It's become a little too antagonistic. I've been disagreeing with you entirely too much. I'm so pleased to turn my wrath, my attention to this man. How could you be so wrong? The difference is between walking into a bear trap and being involved in a slow-motion accident. What happened to the Falcons had so many opportunities not to happen. Granted, both hurt terribly. But with the Falcons, it's not a boxing analogy, Stephen A. It's this. With the Seahawks, you fell off a building when you were walking on the ledge. And everybody looked at it and goes, why were you walking on the ledge? Give it to beast mode. You didn't have to fall off the building. But with the Falcons, it was falling off the building after tripping, catching yourself, pulling yourself back up, tripping again, catching yourself again, stumbling. So many opportunities to learn the lesson. Get off the ledge before you fall. The Falcons made the same mistake over and over. You guys have highlighted it today. Starting with 3rd and 1, choosing not to run, allowing a strip sack, choosing not to run, and with 4 minutes to go, they ran the first one, so 2 consecutive times after that. The Super Bowl trophy is in your grasp. Run, milk the clock, kick a field goal. At that point, an under 40-yard field goal, which I believe Matt Bryant is something close to 100% on connecting on. 11 points up with 3 minutes to go, you win the game. As you point out, your long storied history of heartache Atlanta is over if you can simply learn a simple lesson. Run the ball. You don't have to make these mistakes. And yet, they did. Over and over and over. That hurts much, much worse than one big, bad oops.
You know, agreeing with Max ain't going to help your case. I mean, he gets beat up every day. We understand this.
What world do you live in?
I live in my world.
Must be such a happy place.
I live in my world, and it's a very happy place. Let me tell y'all something right now. Y'all keep forgetting the operative word, which was expectations. Coming into this game, when everyone talked about the New England Patriots and the Atlanta Falcons, whether you picked Atlanta to win or lose, most people outside of a T.J. Ward or a T.I. basically had the New England Patriots scoring about 30. They might have had Atlanta scoring a little bit more, but the expectation was that New England's offense was going to get theirs, but you were not going to stop Atlanta's offense. So even when New England was struggling, somehow, some way you looked shell-shocked because it was like, wait a minute. We're not surprised that Atlanta scored 28. Mm-hmm. We are shocked that Tom Brady threw a pick six. We are surprised that they're down 28-3. We are more shocked that we weren't shocked by the 28 points by Atlanta.
Oh,
it was the three. It was the three from New England along with the mistakes. What I'm saying to you is that somehow, some way, you expected them to get off. The difference was it was probably going to be too late because who was going to stop Atlanta? In the case of Seattle 2 years ago, you're literally standing there saying, they're going to lose this damn Super Bowl. It's the obvious call to make, and it's the stupidest call. I don't care what Donovan McNabb says. I don't care what Tim Hasselbeck says. I don't care what any NFL analyst says.
Same call won Clemson the national title against Alabama.
The stupidest call. Don't give me college. We talking about the Super Bowl.
But
don't
it worked then, so that call worked sometimes.
Don't give me college, okay? Don't give me kids. I don't want kids, all right? I'm talking about the NFL. The hell you bringing me up kids for? That this is the Super Bowl, a man's game. You are at the half-yard line. Beast mode is your running back.
Giving it to beast
mode. And you decide. And by the way, not only that, but it left with these questions. Did it happen because Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks did not want Marshawn Lynch to be the hero?
Oh, get out.
I'm just saying people ask that question.
I'm just saying it's what people say when they said something ridiculous.
No.
I'm just saying.
But you have to admit, a lot of people were saying that afterwards. They were like, he didn't want beast mode to be the
Were they
hero.
winning or losing the game at the time? They were winning or losing the game?
They were obviously losing.
They were losing the game. The Falcons were already up 8 points. If you kick a field goal, you got to score. You got to have the two-point conversion. You have to recover an onside kick. You have to score again.
You
have won.
You're telling me what hurts more. I'm saying to you that if you're Seattle, the Super Bowl championship was yours at the half-yard line. If you're Atlanta, you're staving off an onslaught. Brady's coming. Oh, my God, what are we going to do? That's the difference.
You brought up expectations, which was a really fatal flaw in your argument because
I don't have flaws in my arguments, but go ahead.
That's why I'm here to help you with this. I'm here to help you with your lack of self-awareness.
Well, you know what? I'm going to always
I'm like a shrink in that way.
I'm the best, baby. I'm the best.
By the way, that's the most self-aware thing you've ever said.
All right.
The win probability, according to ESPN, at one point in time of that game was 99.5%.
Okay, guys.
You brought up expectations.
That,
my friend, is some sense
You
of
kick a field goal, it goes to 99.99.
Right.
You need like Ali G to tell you how.
All right.
We got to leave it there. They're both terrible.
The MIT guys right here. That's what I'm going to call them. The MIT. I don't give a damn about ESPN.
Will is staying with us.
I still can't believe it. Insane. The New England Patriots engineered the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history, overcoming a 25-point deficit to beat the Atlanta Falcons in the first overtime game in Super Bowl history. Will Kane is still here with us. Max, I can't wait for this conversation.
Yes.
You said Tom Brady will fall off a cliff next year.
You want the floor?
Oh. I was just going to say, the floor is there. Okay. I don't even need to be a part of this one. Oh, my. I'm scared. Let me get my drink ready. Hold on a second. I wish there's some cheese doodles up here so I can snack while I watch y'all. Okay. Y'all go ahead and do y'all thing.
All right. Do you still feel, after what you saw this man do last night, that he is going to fall off a cliff?
Even the question begs the question. Do you understand what a cliff is?
No, it begs an answer.
No, I understand
what is the cliff?
It begs an answer.
A cliff is you're here and then you fall off.
So how does a demonstration of the fact that someone is still operating at an extremely high altitude change the cliff prediction? In fact, if anything, it reinforces it.
So he's still at the peak? Not ascending?
Slight interjection so we make sure something.
Yes.
It's not the cliff that we're debating.
That's right.
It's the time that you said in which you would fall off of it.
Right. He's got another 12. He's got another season by the end of the season. Right.
So I'm saying the cliff don't mean anything else. It's the time that you said.
Well,
so reiterate the time.
So let's talk about this.
So
let me explain it again for people who are just joining the show, just joining the program.
I guarantee you that. Go ahead.
This is the history. Look, no one disputes that Father Time is undefeated. right? Father Time has never lost. It catches up to everyone. Everyone gets old.
Yeah,
we all agree that everyone gets old.
Yes, but I also agree there's also firsts.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not up to that part yet.
Okay, sorry. I just had to make
now,
sure.
So we all agree that everyone gets old, correct?
Yes.
We have unanimity on planet Earth and in the known universe that everyone gets old.
Mm-hmm.
Good. I'm glad we have that unanimity. I've established that point. Second, no one's disputing the fact that Tom Brady will get old one day. The question is, when will he get old?
After everyone else.
So I looked into it, in fact, because I noticed that I argued this about Brett Favre on New York radio once upon a time. He can go on till he's 45. It's never happened. He's going to fall off the cliff. No, he's not. Da-da-da. Boom, he fell off the cliff. Peyton Manning, yes, he'd been injured, but he threw 55 touchdowns the year after he'd been injured, which shattered Tom Brady's record, as a matter of fact, and was on pace to do it the next year. Marcellus Wiley and I debated on Sports Nation frequently and on the radio in L.A., that, of course, everyone else takes the other side. Peyton can go till he's 50 years old. No, Peyton's about to be done. Sure enough, he was done. Now Tom Brady. And before I answer the part about, well, there's a first time for everything, I will say, I looked this, I said, let me look if there's any underlying research here. Sure enough, there was. And in fact, it was described as a cliff. Why? Because all great old quarterbacks, as it turns out, the pattern is not, when they approach 40 years old, that you notice underlying signs of decay in their play and stretch vertical attempts, et cetera, stuff like that starts to decrease, and that foretells some kind of drop because they're in decline. No, it's not a decline. It's not a slope. They're up here, and whether age, injury, whatever else it is, they are suddenly down here, suddenly, and always by the age of 41. So that all I did was identify the moment past which Tom Brady would no longer be a great quarterback. That's when he's going to get old. Now, to your question of, well, there's a first time for everything.
Yes.
There certainly is. And Tom Brady's a strong candidate to be the first.
I have a question before you continue. Can I just ask one thing? Did you ever think that Tom Brady would have engineered that comeback? Now, that was a first.
Yes.
You thought he was going to come back?
I thought it was distinctly possible, yes.
Okay.
All right. It's time for a rebuttal.
And by the way, ask anyone who I watched the game with. I did not think that game was over at the half.
Okay.
The point is, Tom Brady could be the first, but I will bet, if you're laying odds, on the entirety of human history and biomechanics and DNA over the idea that Tom Brady will be the first. He will have to upset the odds.
Okay.
It's very straightforward.
I don't want to speak for everyone here, but
please do.
May I?
Yeah.
The point of contention here isn't the hot take that a cliff exists. Am I right?
No.
Not for me.
People die. It happens. The trick in the hot take is predicting when these cliffs happen. I think you're acknowledging that.
Sure.
What we doubt, what I in particular doubt, is your ability to predict when that cliff is going to take place. And I understand biomechanics and statistics and every other quarterback that's ever existed. I understand all that is factored into your 41-year-old cliff that's going to emerge in the next 12 months for Tom Brady. But you seem to have thought at 7:45 p.m. last night in the second quarter that we have arrived at this moment when you tweeted cliff.
Mm-hmm. I'm just reminding people that it exists.
Is that right?
In fact, Tom Brady's play.
You were saying we'd arrived.
Well, I was saying maybe. Look, Tom Brady's play. I knew at the time that had they gone on to lose the game, people would mistakenly think that the cliff was there. Just as the fact that they went on to win would mean that the cliff is never coming or not coming when I say it's coming.
The thing is, Max,
his play was a little underrated in the first half and a little overrated in the second half.
This prediction is one you can trot out at various times, like the second quarter of the Super Bowl, or today, or 2 weeks from now, or 6 months from now, and sooner or later you will be right.
No, exactly before he's 41 I will be right. That's what I did.
All right.
I just identified the date, that's all.
Which one of those quarterbacks won the Super Bowl at 39?
Well, actually, Peyton Manning, since you mentioned it.
38.
No, he's 39.
Can I just say this real quick? Can I just say this?
Look it up. He's 39. Good.
You just brought up Tom Brady and a cliff, and essentially admitted, and I'm talking evidence here. I'm not talking about, well, we all die. We all fall off a cliff eventually. No. I'm talking evidence. You just brought up biometrics. On that, in the immediate aftermath of a 466-yard performance in Super Bowl 51. What I'm saying to you is this. The cliff that you allude to, that's going to arrive in the next 12 to 15 months, your evidence is...
12 months.
Okay, I'm sorry. Your evidence is, okay, he's about to turn 40, and no one succeeds after 40.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right. No one's ever going to lead it.
That's pretty much the argument.
That's it. So what I'm saying to you is, you're basically saying Nothing else matters because he's about to turn 40. No.
Except for his age. Except for his.
No, I'm making a prediction. Now, the counter weight.
No, it ain't just a prediction.
Yes, it is.
It's not just a prediction.
Sure it is.
No, you are emphatic about it, which is why you were on Twitter last night bringing up the class.
Right.
In the second quarter.
Then.
And trolling Boston a little bit. Let's say what it is.
Okay, I understand. I don't mind that. I don't mind.
By the way, at the half, in case there was a comeback and I wouldn't be able to tweet it out after the comeback, let's say what it is. The counter to my argument is everything you're bringing up. His nutrition. I can't hear enough about how great his nutrition is. The fact that he is with a great coach who knows exactly what he's doing and they can dink and dunk pass a lot of the stuff. His arm strength, by the way, in the first half, those vertical throws, not so much. And even though he had more passes of over 15 yards in the second half, they were very crisp throws, but not the deep vertical throws. But he's with a coach and in a system where that can all work. He takes great care of himself. All those things are true, and there's a first time for everything. At one point, there was no 4-minute mile until someone ran it.
Or
My
25-point comeback in a Super Bowl.
Sure,
that happened.
there's a first time for
Brady.
There's a first time for everything. But to suggest that it is more likely than not to happen because you like Tom Brady is foolish.
Okay, let's synthesize this debate. You're right. There's a first time for everything. What I think we're accusing you of is not seeing that the first time is happening right now in front of your eyes. On your side of the ledger for the cliff, you have evidence of every other quarterback that's ever existed.
Sure.
On our side, we have a Super Bowl MVP at the age of 39, a record for passing in the Super Bowl. We have a quarterback that threw 2 interceptions in his last season of football. I think the weight of evidence suggests we might be right on this cliff that's going to occur in the next,
I appreciate those points.
And
I appreciate the points.
And I think the weakness in your argument is revealed that it's an almost religious belief of yours when you tweet it out in the second quarter of the Super Bowl.
I want to address that. In fact, Tom Brady threw a pick-6 in yesterday's game, and
with all the evidence you needed.
By the way, and tried to throw a couple more, 2 or 3 more in the second half of a tight game. Look, I love Eli Manning. He's an incredible clutch performer. But we all Giants fans know he got very lucky. You know, you need to get lucky as well. Then you have to make the most of the opportunity, which Tom Brady did. But had the DBs just held on to a few of those balls, we don't have this conversation right now about Tom Brady's performance. So it is also somewhat lucky. And let me point out that while Brady was amazing this year, in a Belichick system that works, obviously, Peyton Manning's season, after his injury and before his precipitous decline the following season of 55 touchdowns, was and remains the greatest season of all time. And at that point, I had these exact same conversations with people about Peyton.
Can I ask you a yes or no question, and nobody can respond because you brought up another quarterback? Did this now prove yesterday that Brady is better than Rodgers?
No.
Okay.
Look,
we'll save that for another time.
Yeah,
no, we can't get into it. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that ludicrous comment that you just made.
Aaron Rodgers would have made every single play Brady did, and many he couldn't.
Can you follow the rules? Will. Thank you.
It's insulting. It is insulting to bring up Aaron Rodgers today. It is insulting.
To Aaron Rodgers, yes.
1 Super Bowl, 5.
Yo, everybody get up! Everybody get up! Everybody needs to understand that I'm more than simply a hype man for this rap group. Just like Geico is more than just a company that can save you money. Geico also has fast and friendly claim service, so they can help you when you need it most. And while I do love being a hype man, I also love reading for children's audiobooks. Like Little Bo Peep, she lost the sheep, and she don't know where to find them. Yo!
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Patriots fans had their voices heard last night with a chorus of boos for the commissioner. The Boston Herald with the headline, Roger that. So Robert Kraft just called this title the sweetest one, and he doesn't need to explain it. It's been over 2 years since the beginning of the Deflategate saga. Stephen A., I know you guys are from New York, but seriously, is it time we all leave the New England Patriots, this franchise, alone?
Absolutely. It's been overdue. I know there are people out there who would disagree with that, but every time, you know,
Rams fans.
You can't be on the air, whether it's on my ESPN radio show or whether it's here or whether it's walking the streets where you have people who will call the Patriots cheaters or whatever. You know what? You don't get to have it both ways. Is Tom Brady one of the greatest, if not the greatest quarterback in history, or is he not? Is Bill Belichick one of the greatest, if not the greatest coach in history, or is he not? You get to a point where you say to yourself, excuse me, look at what they have done. They weren't cheating when they were down 28-3, okay? They weren't cheating, they weren't cheating when they lost those 2 Super Bowls to the Giants, okay? They didn't cheat when they sat up there and went up against Seattle, all right, which was after Deflategate, mind you, had transpired just 2 weeks earlier, all right? At some point in time, your credentials, what you accomplish, speak for itself. Here is what I know. I would give anything for the Knicks or the New York Jets to have a Tom Brady or a Bill Belichick type individual presiding over our franchise, whether it's a star player or a star coach. I would give anything for any New York team to give me what they have given Foxborough, what they have given, thank God bless the Yankees, what they have given, Massachusetts and what have you. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are nothing short of phenomenal. It is time for us to pump the brakes and respect what they bring to the table, because what they have brought has been better than anything anybody has brought to the table over the last decade and a half.
Or ever, really. I mean, Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time. And in spite of the fact, I don't care at all about the Jets. In fact, I do not wish them success. I'm a Giants fan. And I get, as New Yorkers, you have to choose in New York. You
I only brought up the Jets because they haven't won since 1960.
That's right. Good. And that's the way it should stay. It should stay that way for another however many years. The point is that even as a Giants fan, with all the success the Giants have had a lot of success, including beating the Patriots twice in 2 of the greatest Super Bowls you've ever seen. I would trade it all to get Bill Belichick as the coach and GM. Because as good a job as the Giants coaches and GMs have done, no one's ever done the job Belichick's done. Of course I want that guy as the coach and the GM. But when people say leave the Patriots, by the way, he was the defensive coordinator for the Giants. When people say leave them alone, to what exactly, why exactly? Let's review what happened here. The only way that winning counteracts the cheating, if in fact it was cheating, is that it shows that they would have won without the cheating anyway, which I don't think anyone ever disputes. I mean, when they found them with the balls in the AFC,
they do dispute it.
They say they win because they cheat.
Okay, in that case, I can't speak for them. But what I will say is that their cheating, if it was cheating, probably helped them in some marginal way and ultimately wouldn't have mattered. When they got caught using the deflated footballs, they were in the middle of putting a waxing on the Colts. It's not like that was a close game. It's not like anyone after the game said, see, the only reason they beat the Colts is because of deflated footballs. So that issue aside, what are we exactly doing here? So they've been involved in multiple cheating scandals. They have challenged the commissioner, the authority of the commissioner. As a result, they wound up resting the greatest quarterback of all time 4 weeks in the beginning of the season, maybe helping them the rest of the season, increasing the trade value of their backup quarterback. They can probably get a first-round pick for him now, and ultimately facing the chokingest team in the history of the Super Bowl in the Atlanta Falcons and winning yet another Super Bowl. Leave them alone. This is like the greatest thing that ever happened to them.
No, but
they have motivation, us against the world.
The asterisk next to their name.
Time out. Last time I checked, integrity matters. And if somebody came up to you and they said everything that you have achieved in your illustrious career is compromised because you're a cheater, regardless of how much money you're making, regardless of your title, regardless of your success, it would throw you aback a little bit, because no one wants their personal integrity questioned. So we're having this discussion because what I'm saying is that when it comes to Belichick and when it comes to Brady, those out there, the naysayers out there who try to attribute the level of success that they have achieved to somehow gaining an unfair advantage need to stop doing that.
Okay, but you're conflating two issues here. If on the one hand you're saying, well, attacking someone's integrity, one's integrity is important, well, I agree with that, certainly. But if they were cheating, in fact, and it was not just one, it was Spygate and then it was Deflategate, then winning at a later date doesn't speak to cheating. Now, if you're saying, look, they weren't cheating, and the fact that they won proves that they weren't cheating, I suppose that speaks to integrity. But really, all you can say about winning is that it proves that if they were cheating, it didn't make a difference. And that doesn't speak to integrity.
It depends on who you're talking about. If you're talking about Bill Belichick, your points are valid. If you're talking about Tom Brady, they may not. Because Tom Brady will tell you he had nothing to do with Spygate. Tom Brady will tell you he had nothing to do with Deflategate. Now, you can believe what you want. We all can believe what.
How does winning change that?
But what I'm saying to you is, because when it came to Tom Brady, you did have some idiots out there actually implying that the greatness of Tom Brady isn't what we think it is.
It was based on cheating?
That's what they were saying.
Yes, that cheating helped.
Okay. Wait. No, this is the part that disturbs me about this debate with you. You host a radio show in Los Angeles. Are you going to sit here with a straight face and tell me not a single damn soul during the time you talked about the Deflategate called you up and said to you that Tom Brady ain't as great as he is, that you know what, he cheated? Nobody said that?
Actually,
No one said that?
most of the argument centered around the fact that you can't call the greatest ever a guy who cheated based on the idea of honesty, not based on the idea that the cheating made Tom Brady better.
Max, don't tell me that callers who called you up dissected that intimately between the two. They will call you up. We both deal with callers every day. You trying to tell me that callers sat up there
you want perfect unanimity?
I'm just saying,
you're going to find some people who feel that way.
I'm saying, exactly. There were people out there who sat up there and said, Tom Brady ain't what you think he is because he had an unfair advantage. I'm saying, kill that noise. He is everything we think he is.
If by this question what we mean is we should leave the Patriots alone because they're better than everyone, I feel sorry for anyone who doesn't understand already a long time ago the Patriots are better than everybody else on a yearly basis.
To answer the question I asked Stephen A., yes, it's time we leave them alone. As someone who grew up in New England as a Giants fan, and you hear Deflategate and Spygate, I'm overall that these guys are the greatest. They're a dynasty. They're next level. Meanwhile, the Patriots, with one of the most improbable wins in Super Bowl history, they rallied from 25 points down in the largest comeback in Tom Brady's career. New England finished the game with 31 unanswered points. It's the second most unanswered points to finish a game in Super Bowl history. Max?
Yeah.
This is a tough one, in my opinion, but that's why you guys debate. Who deserves more credit for yesterday's win? Is it Brady or is it Belichick?
The answer is, as it always is when this question comes up, although the details here make it a little closer because of how exceptionally Brady played in the second half, the answer is Belichick. The answer is clearly Belichick. Even in this case, it was a tale of two halves. In the first half, the Pats couldn't get anything done. The Patriots couldn't get anything done. Either side of the ball, and that's key. In the second half, Atlanta couldn't on either side of the ball. And that's coaching adjustments at halftime. That's Bill Belichick. Now, Brady's a big part of that on offense. Of course he was a big part of that on offense. He's not the only part. Guys had to make plays and everything else, offensive line, receivers, running backs, everything. But he's a big part of it on offense. But what about defense and special teams? Because last time I checked, 3 phases of the game. Defense and special teams. Did he have anything to do with the fact that there were 3 and outs, right? Like, did that have anything to do? Brady doesn't play that side of the ball. What about on special teams when they were consistently pinned back? The Falcons were in the second half, behind their own 12. Was that Tom Brady? It wasn't Tom Brady. It was the rest of the team. It's a team sport. And in order to stage that comeback, the Patriots had to beat them in the second half in all 3 phases of the game. Remember, it's 31 unanswered points. Unanswered. The offense didn't answer, and Tom Brady doesn't play defense. That's Bill Belichick.
I disagree with you on this particular point because you can't take anything away from the greatness of Bill Belichick. We all know what it is, and you're not wrong, but here's why I disagree with you, because they were down 28-3. Now, obviously, the defense has to stop, and the defense, as far as I'm concerned, was sensational all game because they only held Atlanta to 14 points, basically. It was really the defense. But when you look at the performance under duress that Brady was subjected to, because of the hole he contributed to putting the team in, being down 28-3, regardless of the greatness of Bill Belichick, what he basically showed you is how helpless a coach is, even in the midst of all his greatness, when the players can't produce for you, when a quarterback can't make the accurate pass, when a receiver doesn't run the right route or isn't catching passes that are hitting them in both of their hands, things of that nature. There's nothing that the coach can do for you. So you are right when you say that Bill Belichick, the greatness that he is, he definitely put that on displays. Atlanta didn't make adjustments, he did, etc. But when you look at being down 25 and you look at the Herculean effort that Tom Brady had to put forth, especially when he was on the sideline, sitting down with his head down after throwing that pick six again, Max.
I have a question.
Hold on, he put himself in that position, but at the same time, it takes something special.
No doubt.
Coach can't get you out of that.
No doubt. And Belichick couldn't have done it without Brady, although Brady also couldn't have done it without Belichick, and here's the proof. What is it harder to do? score on Atlanta's defense or stop Atlanta's offense?
It's harder to stop Atlanta's offense.
They needed to do that to win that game. Brady has nothing to do with that.
It's harder to stop Atlanta's offense almost any other time. But the Atlanta offense that showed up throughout this season didn't show up in the second half yesterday. Now, it wasn't just because of Belichick. Some would argue it's because they got comfortable. Some would argue it was the injury to Tevin Coleman. Others
they hear the footsteps coming. Brady's going.
And that was the third point. You heard the footsteps coming.
I'm not denying that.
Right.
Brady helped put pressure. Belichick can't do this without Brady. But in the first half, the Falcons dominated all three phases of the game. Then there was halftime. Belichick makes adjustments. They come out. The Pats dominate all three phases of the game.
Last point, the footsteps. The footsteps weren't there because of Bill Belichick. The footsteps was there because they heard Tom Brady coming.
Disagree, but that's what the show is about.
This is one for me where they're not independent of each other. It's just both of them. And I know this is a debate show, but it was both.
No. We ask who's more. Nobody's taking credit away from either.
They have a symbiotic relationship.
Yes.
But I'm right as
we asked you guys earlier in the show, with this fifth ring, is Tom Brady the greatest quarterback ever? And usually our First Take fans right down the middle, not with this one. 76% saying yes, he is.
You know, there's something to be said for acting like you've been there before. Among other things, what we saw during Super Bowl 51 were two owners. One was Falcons owner Arthur Blank, a good man, no doubt, an accomplished one, too, but one who was clearly a bit presumptuous, dancing and prancing in his suite and on the sidelines, obviously before the outcome had actually arrived. And then there's Patriots owner Robert Kraft, composed, elated, gracious, and classy, as always. Now, of course, there are those who will argue that's not exactly how he came across during the trophy presentation last night when he called out Roger Goodell, basically. But make no mistake, he's entitled to that moment and so much more. For years, due to Spygate, Deflategate, and everything else in between, the man has come as close to a paragon of virtue as anyone in sports. He holds his organization accountable, as well as his Hall of Fame coach. Okay, yes, he did leave his legendary quarterback hanging, but it was all for the sake of the league's best interest, not that of his own. Along the way, he keeps winning. The league keeps making money. He keeps winning some more, and the people he works for swear by him. As a great owner, as a great person, as the personification of what the leader of an organization should be, even as he calls a very unpopular president his dear friend. In other words, the polls don't affect this man. This is what happens when you're a winner, when you're decent in the process, when you should be revered for more than just win.